Sometimes, a place you once called home can change in ways you never expected. This is the journey of John Cena, a man who built a humble coastal cafe not for money or fame, but to create a space where kindness mattered more than anything else. But when troubling whispers of betrayal, missing profits, and cruelty toward the most loyal worker began to surface, John Cena knew he couldn't stand by. He decided to return in disguise, not as the famous man everyone recognized, but as an unseen observer determined to find the truth, defend the innocent, and restore the dignity of the cafe he had once poured his heart into. If you enjoy this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because tomorrow will bring you an even more powerful story just for you. And tell us in the comments below, where are you watching from? The wind howled gently across the Oregon coast as John Cena pulled his old denim jacket tighter around his shoulders. A faded trucker hat shadowed his face, hiding the world-famous figure beneath the rough disguise. To everyone else, he was just another weary traveler stopping by a diner. But inside, his heart was heavy. 15 years ago, John Cena had built the cafe with his own hands. It wasn't grand, it wasn't flashy, but it had soul. Driftwood beams lined the walls, the scent of fresh clam chowder hung in the air, and laughter from both tourists and locals once filled the space. But now, rumors haunted him. Cash going missing, staff turnover at an all-time high, and most painfully, cruelty directed at a man who had given the cafe his entire life. That man was Eli, a silver-haired dishwasher with a frail frame and a spirit stronger than steel. For nearly a decade, Eli had scrubbed plates, mopped floors, and carried the cafe on his tired back. To John Cena, Eli was the heart of this place. And yet, whispers claimed Eli was the problem. Money shortages, careless mistakes, even theft. John Cena's gut told him something wasn't right. As he pushed open the wooden door, the bell above jingled, swallowed by the chatter of a busy lunch rush. The cafe looked warm and familiar, but to Cena it suddenly felt foreign, like a melody played just slightly out of tune. He slid onto a corner stool, lowering his cap as he studied the room. At the register stood Jasper and Nora, two cashiers who laughed too sharply and smirked too often. Their eyes drifted toward Eli, who scrubbed dishes with quiet dignity. Nora whispered something, Jasper snorted, and both of them chuckled cruelly. John Cena clenched his jaw. Moments later, a toddler spilled his orange juice across the floor. Before the mother could even apologize, Eli was already there, mop in hand, voice soft and reassuring. "No trouble at all, ma'am," he said kindly. The child giggled as Eli winked, and the mother's shoulders eased. Around them, no one seemed to notice, except John Cena. He ordered a turkey sandwich, his voice disguised in a gruff tone, and slid a 20 toward Nora. She rolled her eyes, muttering under her breath, but Eli in the background smiled at a regular customer, greeting him by name. That's when John Cena saw it. Jasper's sly hand reaching toward the tip jar, slipping $1 into his pocket with practiced ease. The smirk on his face was quick, almost invisible, but John Cena's sharp eyes caught it. His heart pounded. So this is where the money is going. The cafe's warmth was still there, but beneath it, something rotten was festering. And John Cena had just stepped into the storm. The afternoon rush was in full swing. Plates clattered, the espresso machine hissed, and the soft hum of conversations filled the air. John Cena sat silently in his corner booth, his eyes sharp beneath the brim of his hat. He had learned to observe, to read a room without saying a word. And what he was seeing unsettled him. At the register, Jasper leaned against the counter, his smirk as permanent as a scar. Beside him, Nora flipped through the receipts lazily, her ponytail swaying as she shook her head. Their voices were low, but John Cena's ears, trained from years in locker rooms and arenas, caught enough. Drawers short again. Nora whispered, irritation lacing her tone. Jasper shrugged casually. Not our problem. Bet it's the old man being sloppy. Their eyes flicked toward Eli, the elderly dishwasher still scrubbing plates with relentless dedication. The suggestion stung John Cena like a blade. They're framing him, he realized, his fists tightening under the table. Just then, a loud crash split the air. A tourist had dropped a ceramic mug, and shards of porcelain scattered across the tile. Gasps rippled through the cafe as all eyes turned. Before the waitress could even move, Eli appeared like a shadow, broom and dustpan already in his hands. "Easy now, sir," Eli said gently, his voice calm as he knelt to sweep up the pieces. The tourist stammered apologies, his cheeks flushed red, but Eli only smiled. Accidents happen. No harm done. The moment should have passed quietly, but not for Jasper. Passing by, he muttered under his breath, just loud enough for nearby staff to hear. "Clumsy idiot." Eli didn't flinch. He returned to his sink, his dignity unshaken. But John Cena's jaw locked. He could taste the bitterness of injustice. Moments later, a regular customer named Clara, an older woman in a lavender sweater, slid into the booth next to John Cena. She studied him with curious eyes. "You new around here?" she asked. "Just passing through," Cena lied, roughening his voice. Clara's gaze softened as she glanced toward Eli. "That man's been here 7 years. Heart of gold. Life hasn't been kind to him, but he still shows up every single day." Her voice dropped. "Lost his wife to cancer. Sold everything to pay her bills. Lives in a trailer out back now." John Cena's chest tightened. The truth was heavier than he had imagined. Eli wasn't just loyal, he was broken, yet still standing. And people like Jasper and Nora dared to spit on his sacrifice. The cafe quieted as the rush slowed. A young waitress, Mia, fumbled an order and accidentally mixed up a table's meal. A sharp-suited businessman snapped harshly, "This isn't rocket science." Mia froze, her eyes wide with fear. Before John Cena could intervene, Eli stepped forward. "My mistake, sir," he said calmly, shielding Mia from the man's anger. He offered a free coffee, his tone soothing like the tide. The businessman grumbled but relented, and Mia mouthed a quiet thank you. From the corner of his eye, John Cena caught Jasper smirking again. "Too soft," Jasper muttered to Nora, shaking his head. And at that moment, John Cena knew. The poison inside his cafe wasn't just theft. It was cruelty. A cruelty that fed on kindness. And he would not allow it to spread any longer. The cafe had begun to settle into its late afternoon rhythm. The sun angled through the wide windows, spilling golden light across driftwood tables. Tourists nursed their coffees, locals swapped stories, and for a moment, the place almost felt like the sanctuary John Cena had built all those years ago. But beneath that warmth, the rot was spreading. John Cena kept his head down, pretending to read the crumpled newspaper he had picked up, while his ears locked onto the register where Jasper and Nora whispered like vultures circling prey. "Another shortage today," Nora hissed, pretending to balance the cash drawer. Jasper leaned in, his voice a sharp whisper. "Easy fix. We just keep pointing at Eli. Leia's too stressed to double-check. The old man takes the blame, and we walk away clean." John Cena's pulse hammered in his ears. So it's true. They're not just stealing, they're framing him. Eli, unaware of the venom aimed his way, was busy wiping down a stack of plates. His movements were slower now, and Cena caught the brief flicker of pain on his face as he rubbed his wrist. Arthritis, maybe. But the old man pushed on, a quiet warrior carrying more than anyone realized. The moment turned when a young mother, Sarah, stepped nervously to the counter. 2 children clung to her arms as she fumbled through her wallet, cheeks flushed with embarrassment. I'm short, she whispered. Nora's expression hardened instantly. Again, she snapped, drawing Jasper over with a tilt of her head. Her voice dripped with disdain as the children clung tighter to their mother's coat. Before the cruelty could deepen, Eli appeared. He reached into his own pocket, pulling out a few wrinkled bills. "Here," he said gently, pressing the money into Nora's hand. "They shouldn't go hungry." Sarah's shoulders sagged with relief as she mouthed a trembling thank you and hurried out the door. But Jasper only sneered. "Bleeding himself dry for strangers," he muttered. Nora scoffed in agreement. "Pathetic." John Cena's grip on the newspaper tightened until the pages nearly tore. Eli isn't the problem. He's the glue holding this place together. And they want to break him. Just then Clara, the old woman in lavender, leaned toward Cena again, her voice low. "They've been circling him for weeks. If someone doesn't stop it, they'll bury him under lies." John Cena's eyes narrowed beneath the brim of his hat. "Not if I can help it." As if on cue, Jasper suddenly raised his voice at the register. "Short again. $20 missing." The cafe grew quiet. Curious eyes turned. Nora shook her head dramatically, her gaze sliding toward Eli, who was bent over a sink, oblivious to the trap being set. Whispers rippled through the room. Suspicion. Shadows of betrayal beginning to cling to Eli's name. John Cena's blood burned hot, but he forced himself to stay still. He needed proof. He needed the perfect moment. And when that moment came, he would strike, not as a silent observer, but as the man who built this cafe, and would reclaim it. The evening rush crept in with the sound of ocean waves pounding against the distant rocks. The cafe glowed warmly from the outside, lanterns swaying gently above the wooden porch, but inside, the atmosphere had shifted. There was tension in the air, a quiet storm building, invisible to most, but crystal clear to John Cena. From his booth, he watched Eli tirelessly scrub a stubborn pan, his shoulders slumping slightly with fatigue. Every so often, the old man winced, rubbing his wrist before forcing himself back to work. His kindness was constant, his pain invisible. And not one person, except John Cena, seemed to notice. At the register, Jasper leaned against the counter with lazy confidence while Nora scrolled through her phone between customers. Their smirks made Cena's stomach twist. They weren't afraid, not of getting caught, not of ruining Eli, not of shattering the very soul of the cafe. Then it happened. A teenage boy named Max, no more than 17, shuffled to the counter. His hoodie was frayed, his sneakers torn, and when Nora rang up his order, his card declined. "I thought I had enough," Max mumbled, shame burning in his cheeks. Nora rolled her eyes. "No cash, no food," she said coldly. Max froze, shoulders curling inward. Before he could turn away, Eli stepped forward, pulling a few crumpled bills from his pocket. "I got you, son," he said softly. His voice was calm, fatherly, filled with dignity that no hardship could erase. Max's eyes widened as relief washed over him. He mumbled a quiet thank you and rushed out the door, clutching his food. Nora scoffed loudly, making sure everyone could hear. "There goes Eli's charity fund again." Jasper chuckled. "And they wonder why the drawer's always short." John Cena's jaw tightened. His hands curled into fists beneath the table. Every fiber of him wanted to rip off the disguise and end it right there. But he held back. Not yet. He needed undeniable proof, evidence that no one could twist. Just then, Clara approached again, her lavender sweater brushing against the booth as she leaned in close. "You don't know the half of it," she whispered, her eyes glassy. "That trailer he lives in? It won't be his much longer. The park's being sold. 60 days, and he'll have nowhere to go." Cena's heart sank like a stone. 7 years of loyalty, and he's about to lose everything. As Clara slipped away, Jasper's voice rang out again, louder this time. "Drawers off, $20 gone." Nora gasped theatrically, shaking her head. "I saw Eli by the register earlier." All eyes turned toward the dishwasher. Eli froze mid-scrub, confusion etched across his weathered face. His lips parted as if to speak, but no words came. Whispers spread like wildfire. Customers frowned. Suspicion grew. John Cena's blood boiled. They're tightening the noose. But inside, he also knew something else. The moment was coming. The trap was nearly complete. And when it snapped shut, he would be ready to tear it apart in front of everyone. The cafe was crowded that night, every booth filled with locals and tourists seeking warmth from the salty wind outside. The hum of conversation and the clinking of silverware filled the air, but beneath it all was an uneasy current, as though everyone sensed something was about to happen. John Cena sat quietly in his booth, the brim of his hat shadowing his eyes, his phone resting on the table. Hidden inside the cafe were small cameras he had installed earlier, positioned to watch the register, the tip jar, and the subtle movements of Jasper and Nora. Every second was being recorded, feeding into his phone, building the proof he needed. At the sink, Eli worked tirelessly as always. His hands were red from hot water, his back slightly bent, but still he moved with purpose. When a waitress stumbled and nearly spilled an entire tray, Eli steadied it with one hand, flashing her a reassuring smile. He was the quiet anchor in the storm. But Jasper and Nora were sharpening their knives. "Tomorrow," Jasper whispered at the register, his smirk widening. "Leia's doing an early count. We make it big, $40 short this time. The old man won't survive it." Nora grinned, her eyes glinting. Finally rid of him. Can't wait to see his face. John Cena's stomach twisted with rage. His fingers dug into the table. $40. They're going to crush him in front of everyone. The moment came quicker than expected. A loud voice cut through the cafe as a burly trucker slammed his fist on the table. "This coffee's cold," he barked. The young waitress Mia froze, panic flashing in her eyes. Before she could respond, Eli stepped forward, calm as always. "Let me fix that for you, sir," he said, taking the mug. Within minutes, he returned with a steaming cup and a fresh pastry on the side. "On the house." The trucker's scowl softened, and he nodded in appreciation. But Jasper muttered under his breath, loud enough for Nora to hear. "Pathetic. Always playing the hero." John Cena's eyes flicked to his phone, and his heart nearly leapt. There it was. Clear footage of Jasper pocketing bills from the register. Nora shortchanging a customer and sliding money into her apron. Their conspiracy caught in perfect detail. The net was closing. But Jasper and Nora didn't know it yet. As the cafe buzzed around them, John Cena's jaw tightened. Tomorrow, they would spring their trap on Eli. But tomorrow, he would spring his own. Morning arrived with a storm rolling off the Oregon coast. Waves pounded the rocks like war drums, and inside Harmony Cafe, the tension was just as fierce. The place was packed, but the usual warmth was missing, replaced by whispers and uneasy glances. John Cena sat quietly in his booth, hat pulled low, his phone buzzing softly with the feed from the hidden cameras. Every detail of Jasper and Nora's scheme was recorded, but the time had not yet come to reveal it. He needed them to go all in, to tighten the trap so the truth could explode in front of everyone. Eli was at his station, slower today, his shoulders sagging as he rubbed his aching wrist. Still, when a child dropped a crayon under a booth, Eli bent with a quiet grunt, retrieving it with a smile. "Future artist," he said kindly, earning a giggle. Nobody applauded, nobody thanked him, except John Cena, silently, in his heart. At the register, Jasper's voice suddenly rose above the cafe noise. "Drawers off again," he announced, holding up a slip. His smirk was cold, his words sharp. $40 missing. Nora gasped theatrically. "I saw Eli by the register earlier." The cafe grew still. Customers exchanged looks, their whispers rising like smoke. Eli froze at the sink, confusion clouding his face. "But I didn't," he said softly, his voice cracking with disbelief. Leah, the stressed manager, stormed out of the back office, clipboard in hand. "Eli, this keeps happening. Were you near the drawer today?" "Yes," Nora cut in, her tone biting. "We both saw him. He lingered there when no one was watching." Gasps rippled through the cafe. Suspicion thickened in the air. Eli's eyes filled with hurt. "I was just covering for folks who couldn't pay," he whispered, his dignity fraying under the weight of the lies. Tom, the fisherman regular, slammed his mug down. "Eli, stealing? That's nonsense," he barked. But Jasper's grin widened. "Numbers don't lie," he said smoothly, glancing at Nora, who nodded in agreement. The cafe erupted in low murmurs. Eli stood frozen, his weathered hands trembling at his side, his honor shredded in front of the very people he had served for years. From his booth, John Cena's chest heaved with rage. His fists clenched so tightly that his knuckles whitened. He had promised himself he would wait, that he would let the evidence speak louder than his anger. But watching Eli crumble under false accusations was almost unbearable. His chair scraped against the wooden floor as he stood slowly. The noise sliced through the heavy silence of the cafe. All eyes turned toward him. The storm outside battered the windows, waves roaring, but inside, a greater storm was about to break. John Cena pulled his hat lower, every step deliberate as he walked toward the counter. The time for watching was over. Tomorrow had come early. The cafe was silent as John Cena's footsteps echoed across the wooden floor. Jasper leaned against the register, his smirk faltering as the disguised man approached. Nora shifted nervously, her eyes darting between the crowd and Eli, who stood trembling by the sink, accused and broken. Then John Cena spoke, his voice steady, deep, and commanding. "There's a truth you all need to see." With one motion he pulled off his hat, revealing his face. Gasps rippled through the cafe. The whispers spread like fire. "It's him, John Cena. He owns this place." Eli's head lifted, his eyes wide with confusion and disbelief. John Cena's gaze softened as he looked at the old man. "I built this cafe with the hope that it would be a home, for customers and for those who worked here. But I failed you, Eli. I should have been here sooner." He turned toward the crowd, pulling out his phone. With a click, he connected it to the cafe's TV screen. The room froze as grainy footage flickered to life. On the screen, Jasper sliding bills from the tip jar into his pocket. Nora shortchanging customers, slipping money into her apron. Their voices whispering in the back corner. "Frame Eli. Blame him. Leah will believe it." Gasps erupted. Murmurs turned to outrage. Tom the fisherman rose to his feet, pointing toward the cashiers. "I knew it. Eli would never steal a thing in his life." Jasper's smirk shattered. He lunged for the door, but two regulars blocked his path. Nora's face went pale, tears streaming as her lies collapsed in front of everyone. Just then, two police officers stepped inside, as if on cue. John Cena's voice was calm but cold. "I called them this morning. They've seen the footage. Justice starts now." Handcuffs clicked. Jasper cursed, Nora sobbed, and together they were led out into the storm, their betrayal now branded for all to see. The cafe turned back to Eli. The old man's hands trembled as he wiped them on his apron, his dignity still fragile, but his eyes shining with gratitude. Customers stood and applauded. Tom raised his mug. Others joined, voices filling the cafe with warmth once again. John Cena stepped forward, his voice softer now. "Eli Lawson is the heart of Harmony Cafe. his loyalty, his kindness, his sacrifice. That's what this place was meant to stand for. And today, that's what it will stand for again. He guided Eli to the manager's office, sliding a folder across the desk. You're no longer a dishwasher. From today, you're the floor manager. Better pay, better hours, benefits you deserve. Eli's lips trembled as he opened the folder, tears welling in his eyes. But I don't know how to manage. John Cena smiled gently. You already do. You lead with integrity. That's enough. The rest you'll learn. But Cena wasn't finished. He placed another folder on the desk, his voice thick with emotion. This is a deed. A small house, just 3 blocks away. No rent, no mortgage. It's yours. Your daughter Emma will never have to worry about you living in that trailer again. Eli's sob broke free, raw, and unrestrained. His hands gripped John Cena's as gratitude spilled from his heart. When they returned to the cafe floor, the customers erupted into cheers. Clara wiped her tears. Mia hugged Eli tightly. Even the children clapped with innocent joy. John Cena raised his hand to quiet the room. From today forward, Harmony Cafe will change. Every worker will have fair wages, full benefits, and an emergency fund. No one here will ever have to choose between helping others and paying their bills. The crowd roared in approval, voices echoing like a promise. Weeks later, the cafe thrived. Eli wore his manager's badge proudly, his back straighter, his smile brighter. Locals greeted him warmly, children waved, and every corner of the cafe radiated the kindness he had always carried. John Cena visited often, sometimes quietly, sometimes openly, but always with pride in his heart. Jasper and Nora's names faded into silence, a cautionary tale of greed. Eli, however, became a symbol, proof that dignity, honesty, and kindness could rebuild not just a cafe, but a community. And as John Cena stood on the porch one evening, watching the sun sink into the ocean, he smiled. Harmony Cafe was alive again, not because of profits or reputation, but because of the people who gave it soul. That was the legacy he had always dreamed of.